We're going to dive into the multi-day recovery window. So essentially think like tournament weekends. We got the World Cup going on right now. What all goes into play to be able to maximize that recovery period? Because from day one to day three, day seven, day 30, depending on how long this tournament is, the body's going to feel incredibly different. A lot of times, the recovery window between games has been condensed and shortened a lot. And so the recovery experience, the recovery focus becomes even more of a priority because almost everyone is going to be feeling fresh, good to go on day one. But whoever's feeling the freshest come the finals is likely who's going to win. It becomes a game of recovery to make sure that when you step out on there from day one to the final, you feel optimized, that you feel great in both games. And so that's what we're going to touch on to be able to help ensure that you do feel great come the final. And so the pattern that every tournament family at all levels, whether you're in youth tournaments or in the World Cup itself, this is kind of that pattern where in game one, everything's feeling great. You go out there flying, good to go. By that last game, either you or your athlete really start to drag. The legs are feeling heavy. You feel like you crash even before you get to halftime. And that drop is real. There's so many research studies showing the fatigue that builds, the soreness that builds, and just the overall performance that drops from an overall distance covered, your sprint speed. This has been shown time and time again. So it's not just a one off. It's not as though you are in a unique situation. Everybody experiences this. But it is something that's able to be addressed, something that's able to be focused on and attacked to be able to help mitigate some of those effects as much as possible. This is primarily a recovery problem. If it was a fitness problem, you would have noticed and experienced it all the way back on game one. But because we felt great on game one and struggled at the end, all signs are pointing to recovery being that primary focus and that primary issue that we want to address. And what makes the tournament so unique and a multi-day recovery aspect so unique is that it's a rebuild job with a deadline. Typically, if you've got a full week to be able to recover, things aren't necessarily as crucial because over time, as long as you're providing adequate fuel and hydration, the body's going to be able to get itself back into an optimal spot. Granted, there's little nuances to be able to maximize all of that, but at the end of the day, if you are eating enough and give your body enough time, aka a whole week, you will be okay. That being said, this is a situation where you don't have that luxury. So we want to make sure that we're capitalizing and prioritizing everything that we can. So after every match, the big three things that really get taxed that need to be focused are the fuel tank, both from an energy standpoint of what you just expended and utilized out there, as well as a hydration standpoint. Your muscles, when you are playing out there and you're out running around, your muscles are getting broken down. Your tissue is breaking down. As you're fending off defenders, you're going to experience muscle soreness and muscle breakdown that needs to be repaired. And after all this, the brain and nervous system need to be able to recover as well. There's a whole lot of mental and neural fatigue that goes on throughout an entire competition. Not just the physical component when you're out there performing, but just the stress of everything, the constant need to be locked in, to be able to read the defense, know what decisions to be able to make, that it does take a toll. And we need to be able to focus and prioritize on the recovery piece around that just as much as the overall nutrition and muscle aspect. And so to break it down into a few priorities, number one, we need to refill the tank fast. Carbohydrates are going to be the biggest priority in this time period. When we get that recovery window condensed, we also need to make sure that we are getting those carbohydrates in quickly because that's what gets impacted from a time standpoint more than any other macro. So from a protein perspective, this is one where, yes, we would love to get it in immediately afterwards as well to start that recovery process. But the carbs in particular are the most time sensitive, where if we don't get those carbohydrates in relatively quickly, if we eat the same amount of carbs a few hours later, our energy tanks, our glycogen stores aren't replenishing as quickly. And when we have a quick turnaround, that becomes incredibly important. This is where a lot of that fatigue can start to creep in because we don't capitalize on that quick turnaround. We're not getting those carbs in fast enough. And over the course of multiple games, that energy tank, because we weren't able to top it off for game two, we weren't able to top it off for game three, that fatigue compounds. That fuel tank is gradually coming down. So we're starting each subsequent game a little bit closer and closer to empty than we are full. So we want to make sure that the closer the next game is, the more of an emphasis that we put on those carbohydrates close after the game. So eating soon is going to beat waiting for dinner every single time. So don't worry about having something elaborate. We just need to make sure that we're getting something in. And that's just where we need to make sure that we are focusing on the big picture. We're not focusing on the scale of what our body weight's going to be. We don't need to measure out our food in this situation. We just need to make sure that we are getting something in. And we need to make sure that carbohydrates are the biggest priority. So if our meal is going to be a few hours away, in this moment, what can we have available? Is it a banana? Is it a granola bar? Is it pretzels? Is it animal crackers? We need to just make sure that we're getting some carbohydrates in there to bridge that gap, start that fuel tank recovery piece before and until we get to that next meal where we can start to incorporate the protein and bring everything else in. And so once we get there, priority number 2 is ensuring that we are getting that adequate protein to be able to repair your body, repair your muscles, to be able to go again. The carbohydrates are going to refill that tank. Protein is what's going to do the repair work to be able to help decrease some of that soreness and make sure your muscles are ready to go for the next game as well. So at every subsequent meal, from the end of that first game to the start of the next game, we want to make sure that there is a protein source to be able to make sure that we're getting that total intake in over the course of the day and to be able to make sure we're maximizing that repair component. We also want to try and make sure that we get a little bit of a protein hit before bed. Having a protein-rich snack is going to maximize the recovery that the body does while asleep. When we're sleeping, the body does so much from a recovery perspective, and if we provide protein before we go to bed, we're essentially providing the body the building blocks that it needs to do everything that it's already going to be trying to do. So before bed, having something like Greek yogurt, smoothie, a quick, simple protein shake is fantastic. Don't overthink it. Don't overcomplicate it. Doesn't need to be crazy. But getting that protein component in is really going to help make sure that we're maximizing that recovery piece to decrease your soreness and have you feeling as fresh as possible for the next game. And so, as we were touching on, making sure that you get that bedtime protein snack, priority number 3 is sleep in and of itself. This is something that if you could turn sleep into a supplement, it would be a $1 trillion company because of all the benefits that come from sleep. And we're able to get the benefits for free. We just have to do it. So make sure that you are prioritizing and protecting the sleep that you are getting. Sleep is going to be the most impactful recovery strategy that you give your body. Yes, we want to make sure that we're refueling it, rehydrating it, and everything there. But when we sleep, what it is able to do and what it utilizes all that good nutrition and hydration for is magical. Making sure that you're prioritizing your sleep and maximizing your sleep over the course of the whole tournament is going to pay huge dividends by the end. So while others may be staying up a little bit later, playing video games, what have you, if you're prioritizing your sleep, maximizing that recovery piece, you are going to thank yourself come the finals. And so naturally, during a tournament, there's going to be some travel involved and you're likely going to be staying at a different location. You're not going to be in your own bed. You're not going to be in your own room. And so there's going to be additional challenges that come along with that are going to be trying to disrupt your sleep. The biggest thing is try to control what you can control. It's not about worrying about making everything perfect, but what are some little tweaks and things that we can do to be able to help with it? So one of which being, if we have late games, these can be some of the most challenging and toughest times to try and get the body to wind down, decompress, and go to sleep. Because you're still amped up from a full game that you just played. But we want to try and bring the body down. We want to try and relax the body down. So some things that we can do in preparation between the end of the game and when we go to bed is, one, we still want to make sure that we get a full meal. This is a big one that I've seen way too many athletes say, well, it's late at night. I don't want to eat really late. I don't want to eat too much before I go to bed. I'm just going to, have a little light something and worry about it tomorrow. Don't do that. Regardless of the time, it could be midnight. If you just played a game, you need to eat. You need to provide all that fuel, all those building blocks for the body to be able to actually start recovering and repairing itself. If you delay that and essentially skip that meal until the next day, you're going to wake up already feeling more sore than you would have otherwise. So make sure you still eat that full meal regardless of the time. The next thing is dim your screens. So even if you can't necessarily fall asleep, if you really need to watch something on the laptop, pull out the phone, watch Netflix, what have you, bare minimum, dim the screens. Don't have that bright light hitting you in the face because that is only going to delay your body's ability to actually relax and fall asleep. Then the other thing too is give yourself a routine. So whether that be shower, brush your teeth, stretch, then bed, whatever that is, try to stick with that routine as best as possible. Because regardless of the environment, regardless of the time, the body is a creature of habit. And when we start to send those same signals that we do when we're at home of, hey, we're getting ready for bed, the body's going to know that. It's going to pick up on that and it's going to start that bed and sleep process. The melatonin's going to start to release, the heart rate's going to slow down a little bit, and it's going to prime the body for sleep. So, those are some things to focus on there. And then when it comes to setting up the environment, if you have the ability, bring your own pillow. I know this may be like I'm showing my age a little bit. We're like it's such an old person to think bring your own pillow, but a lot of times the hotel pillows aren't great. So especially if you've got a really good pillow at home, bring that. There's nothing worse than waking up and all of a sudden you have a kink in your neck and you're feeling horrible. You can't turn to kind of look and be able to scan the field. Bring your own pillow. Bring an eye mask as well to block out the light. A lot of times in hotel rooms, there's going to be little lights and sensors and things all over the place. And while you may not think that it's a big deal, subconsciously, your body is still aware and sensing all of that, and it can interrupt your sleep. And the other thing, turn the temperature down to a pretty cool level. If you can be around 67, yes, you're gonna need that blanket, but that's okay. When it's cool, your body's able to activate the parasympathetic system a little bit and get into that sleep process a little bit quicker to maximize the recovery of when we are asleep. And then if that bedtime sleep isn't the greatest, if we find that we have the opportunity to take a nap, take that nap. So even if we can't get all of our sleep at night, take advantage of those opportunities when they do arise. Because again, even if it's kind of choppy and we get naps here and there, that's still going to be beneficial. So make sure that you do what you can, control what you can control to try to get the maximum sleep that you can, both duration wise and quality wise. Then from a priority number 4 standpoint, this is where we're going to be focusing on kind of the overall soreness aspect of things. Tart cherry juice can be incredibly impactful. And so this is where after a lot of games, yeah, that soreness is naturally going to be popping up. I don't want you to start grabbing for any and all supplements that say decrease your soreness with this product. It's got big bold letters, super neon, flashy lights and things like that. Don't fall for the marketing. Tart cherry juice can be one thing to be able to help assist with that in a more natural standpoint, to where you don't have to worry about some supplement containing some banned substances or anything within it. So the thing that makes tart cherry juice so beneficial is that it is a very strong and very potent antioxidant. It also is able to produce a little bit of melatonin naturally and just aid the overall sleep cycle. So incorporating a little bit of tart cherry juice in the evening can be fantastic. Cherubundi is a great company with a great product. They have some kind of travel sachets to where it's a pouch. You can rip the top. It's able to be shelf stable, so you don't have to worry about refrigerating it. And you're able to take it after the game. It will speed up that recovery piece and help you to wind down, to help you fall asleep a little bit quicker. So tart cherry juice can be a fantastic focus in place of any supplements that you were thinking of randomly just adding. So don't rely on the melatonin too much, because if you take too much or at the wrong time, it could impact you still tomorrow. Give tart cherry juice a try. Give it a shot, see how you feel, and then if not, let me know and we can kind of find some alternatives and go from there. But tart cherry juice can be fantastic. The big thing though with this, and this is a part that a lot of recovery videos and recovery strategies skip, is the fact that some inflammation is great for the body. And so we want to be strategic and mindful about when are we really hitting those antioxidants and those anti-inflammatory strategies and when we aren't. So when we are training, what makes exercise and the training so beneficial is because that's what allows the body to become bigger, faster, stronger. How the body does that, though, is not during the training sessions themselves. When we are actively training, we are breaking the body down. When the body improves, it's during that recovery phase afterwards. The body is being forced to have to learn how to withstand and how to adapt to the stressors that we just exposed it to. And if we all of a sudden are providing a ton of anti-inflammatories and antioxidants after every single training session, the body's not learning how to adapt to that, how to manage that. And so as a result, we don't get the benefits of the improvements of everything because the body basically is being given training wheels to where it's like, hey, if I don't have to do this, why would I? So we want to be very strategic about when we are pushing those antioxidants, when we are incorporating all of those strategies to be able to make sure that we're not kind of shooting ourselves in the foot and erasing a lot of the gains that we could get during the week, during those training sessions. So during a multi-day tournament, when we've got back-to-back games and we've got quick turnarounds, 100%, these recovery strategies are great. But keep in the back of your head that while they're great in this situation, they may not be great every single day. And so this kind of jumps then to priority number 5 of understanding those different gadgets and modalities and recovery strategies and when to actually utilize them. So things like the cold plunges, saunas, compressions, recovery shoes, what have you, they all do have their purpose, their benefits, but it requires the right time and place. It's not every single day. So when we are in that multi-day tournament, these are some things that can be beneficial. The Normatec boots, those cold plunges, Nike's recovery shoes and boots, all of these things have potential, but we want to make sure that we're being intentional in when we do utilize them. This isn't something that we may want to incorporate every single day. And the important thing to remember also is while all of these are great, these are to be added on top of making sure we are still fueling ourselves appropriately, getting adequate protein, rehydrating optimally, and sleeping. Those are going to give you far and away the most benefit and the most recovery compared to any of these different things. That said, if we get those foundational pieces locked in, these can absolutely be complementary pieces, but they're just that, complementary. So get the foundation locked in, and then these types of things can come into play. And this is all being seen with the World Cup going on right now. So here this week, this month, the best teams on the planet, the best players on the planet are really implementing a lot of these strategies because the key is recovery. This is not a time period where people are trying to push themselves and improve necessarily. Yes, everybody wants to improve and be better, but this is a time where health, recovery, and overall just feeling fresh is going to be key. It is a long tournament, and it is a hot tournament this year. And so these recovery strategies are even more important. And you're going to see a lot of videos and a lot of posts about all these different devices and tools that are being utilized by all the players. At the core, every single one of these teams, though, are really prioritizing and emphasizing what they're eating, when they're eating it, how they're hydrating, when they're hydrating, and protecting their sleep. A lot of teams are bringing their own mattresses. I want to say it was Norway, don't quote me on that, but flying out 300 kilograms of their own fish to be able to make sure that they're providing optimal fuel that the players are going to enjoy, that they're going to consume to maximize that recovery piece. So every single team, they're prioritizing eating appropriately, hydrating appropriately, and sleeping appropriately. So while some of the different tools and gadgets may get a lot of the headlines, understand that those are built on top of the key and the core foundation of everything else being implemented. And so when we kind of break this down a little bit of what does one tournament day look like from start to finish, starting with after the game. As soon as the game is done, we immediately want to make sure that we get some carbohydrates in there to kickstart that energy and that fuel tank replenishment piece. If we get some protein in there as well, beautiful. That will only help. But then once we get to the real meal, that's where we really want to ensure that we have that protein piece. we get some fruits and vegetables in there, we continue to push the carbohydrate piece, and we, throughout all of this, are pushing the hydration component, getting those fluids back in. Then throughout the entire day, however long we have from the end of that game to go into bed, make sure we continue to hit that protein piece at every meal, have a little bit at each snack to be able to, again, make sure we hit our total daily targets while incorporating that carbohydrate piece. Carbs and protein, continue to roll with them with fluid being mixed in there as well. Always have a water bottle on hand constantly. We want to make sure that we're rehydrating. As hot as it is, depending on where you're at, there was a lot of sweat loss. There was a lot of fluid loss. We want to make sure we get that back in. The sooner that we get the body rehydrated, the sooner the body's going to be able to do all these different things that we're asking it to do with the carbohydrates, with the protein, and to be able to just optimize all those different processes. Then before bed, get a little bit of additional protein source, get a little bit of extra carbohydrates in there as well to be able to maximize the repair that's going to be occurring while we are asleep. Give yourself a nice little wind down routine as well. Send the signal to the body and to the brain, hey, we're about to go to sleep. Let's relax everything. So if you have that routine, stick to that routine, implement that routine to help the body get into that sleep state. And then set up your environment as best as you can, control what you can control, set up that environment to maximize your sleep. From the eye mask, the pillow, keeping the room nice and cool, do what you can. And then once we have the foundational pieces all put together and implemented, that's when we can start to implement some of those different modalities. Have some of the Tart cherry juice, have a foam roller, have a massage gun, have the Normatec boots, utilize a cold plunge if we so choose. But it starts with that foundational component. Make sure that we're getting all of that locked in, and then we can start to some of those different strategies. If we are incorporating all these different things, by the next time that we have our next game, you're going to be in a great spot, feeling as fresh as you can to go out there and perform your best again. So with all of that, with all the tournaments going on, there are a few questions that have kind of popped up a lot here of late. And these were kind of the main ones that jumped out. First one being, how soon does my athlete really need to eat after a game? And the short answer is the sooner the better, especially when that next game is close. Carbohydrates are going to be the key just because that's what the body's going to be most time sensitive to respond to. But the big thing is we really just want to make sure that we're getting that food in as quickly as we can. Because a lot of times during these condensed schedules, a lot of athletes just straight up aren't eating enough. And so by getting that food in relatively quickly, that just helps increases the chances then of having another meal afterwards to be able to help us get the total calories in to be able to maximize that recovery piece. But it starts with getting that carbohydrate component in as quickly as we can thereafter, especially when that next game is following right behind. So something as simple as a banana or a sandwich, something you can grab and go with. Sports drinks are perfectly fine here in this situation as well. Like that's what sports drinks are made for. But we just want to make sure that we get something in quick, even if we aren't able to get a full meal, because that will be what bridges the gap until we do have that full meal once either home or back at the hotel or wherever we may be. And is my child too young for Tart Cherry or recovery supplements? This is very situational, and it absolutely depends on what is the age of the child in question. But Tart Cherry juice is perfectly fine. It's no different than apple juice. It is a fruit juice. It's the supplement piece that's going to be a lot more nuanced. For adolescents, do not worry about those recovery supplements. The biggest thing that you need to be focusing on and prioritizing is just making sure that we're getting some good food in, we're rehydrating, and going to sleep. Those are the foundational things that need to be implemented. Those are the things that need to be stressed. Don't worry about a flashy supplement or anything like that. Get those foundational pieces locked in. So especially the younger the athlete, the more those foundational pieces are going to be key. Are cold plunges and ice baths good for my athlete? This again is very situational. We want to first understand what's our main priority? What are our current goals? If we are in the middle of a tournament and recovery is the key, yeah, a cold plunge can be great. If we're in the middle of a season and we're really trying to kind of push ourselves and we're training and it is the off season, we're trying to build our fitness, they may not be as good. But this also then comes into play from an age perspective. If we do have a very young athlete or an adolescent athlete, cold plunges likely aren't going to be the best option. We want them to be able to, yes, keep themselves cool, but we also want to make sure that we're not putting them in the situation in the first place of being overexposed to the heat. So it's just that balancing act of things. So a cold plunge can be great from a recovery perspective if we aren't trying to push the adaptations, but not necessarily every day and not necessarily for really young athletes. And if I'm never hungry after a late game, what do? You still want to eat. You absolutely still want to eat. At the end of the day, we want to ensure that we're continuing to eat adequately. We need to get the overall and the total amount of calories in first and foremost. Now, if you're not hungry, you are not alone. That is very common. After a game, after the adrenaline's going, a lot of times the appetite is suppressed. And so, in those moments, because we still want to make sure that we're fueling the body and getting that recovery kick started, liquid calories are going to be your best friend. These are going to be able to still provide all those key pieces of the carbs, the fluid, the protein that the body needs without providing that fullness factor, that satiety component. So in these situations, lean towards smoothies, lean towards chocolate milk, lean towards a protein shake to be able to provide that nutrition without providing that fullness and just that uncomfortableness. Because if you're not hungry and you try to force yourself to eat, you're likely setting yourself up for a rough time. And so, with all of that, the last game is won between the games. Tournaments are long, and there is a big difference on how teams are looking and feeling from that first game to the final. Completely different. And a lot of times at the final, very few teams are going to be feeling 100%. The difference maker is going to be which team's going to be the closest to 100%. And that's where the recovery component thrives. That is what we want to be focusing on because the team and the players that do that the best are the ones that are going to most likely be winning and performing their best in the final. So take each game, take each situation as it's on its own, and take the time to assess what can be done in each of these moments to maximize that recovery piece. Because again, it's not about trying to be a complete 100% at the end. That's likely asking too much. What we want to do is just try to get as close as we can. And that comes from taking advantage of each and every one of those recovery opportunities to maximize that ability.